Today I thought I'd share a story with you that I wrote several years ago. This story was inspired by the beautiful art of Daniel Quinlan. The Colourful Art of Pain, narrated by Cindy Vine, and all the artwork in the book by Daniel Quinlan, the finger painter. This book is dedicated to all the people around the world who have experienced chronic pain, either personally or through supporting others who suffer pain. Although everyone's experience of pain might be different, the one commonality is the intensity of whatever it is you experience. There are no words to describe pain. Sometimes it's best to use pictures. She arrived out of the blue, my guide to show me the way. It was good she came, as I hadn't even realized I was going on a journey. No time to pack, no time to say goodbye, no time. It was a beautiful night, and I should have found pleasure in it. But there is no pleasure in pain. There is only fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of not knowing whether or not you have the strength to get through the journey. My pain was born that night. It tiptoed in, dull at first, but like the fog from the sea, it consumed all it touched, until I saw no reason, lost all focus. The rooster crowed to signal the new day, a strange sound that jarred the brain. On closer inspection, I saw my guide had the rooster by its neck. There will be no new day while you journey into the dark, she said. We passed through farmlands, burnt to a crisp, the skeletons of trees clawing at the sky, shells of huts, cooked carcasses of the cattle, and all around were sounds of moaning and wailing as the people realized all they'd lost. My guide hurried along, urgent, bordering on panic. No time to slow down, no time for looking. We dare not stop. We dare not be late, she urged. The heat seared through my skin until it felt as if I was burning along with the fields. Some people were burying their dead, their grief etched into their faces, the dead at peace. No more pain. How I long for death. The banana ladies sashayed past us with their loads of fruit carefully balanced on their heads. Even those in pain have to eat, they smiled. Life goes on. The landscape changed. Fields of corn ready for harvest. Villagers were out in force, harvesting at midnight, ready to stock up for the tough days that lay ahead. People make plans, even if the future is unsure. The next village had no corn ready for harvesting. People lined the dusty path through the barren wasteland, hands held out, begging, "Please, sir, help us." "How can I help you when I can't even help myself?" I replied. The crowds increased, all dressed in colourful robes, howling at the moon like rabid dogs. The sound was deafening, and I tried to cover my ears. But no matter what I did, the terrible sound invaded my every pore, entering my body and screaming through my veins until my brain felt as if it was ready to explode. My guide danced in front of me as she led the way. I stumbled on behind her, my vision blurred. At times she seemed to be two people, but when I blinked my eyes, she became one, leaving me confused and disoriented. I still didn't know where I was going. The mountain loomed out of the earth, reaching for the moon, a stairway to God. Are we going to climb the mountain? Is it safe tonight? In the dark, we can't see where we are going, and I'm afraid I might miss my footing and fall, I said, with my heartbeats echoing in my ears. 3 women appeared suddenly and laughed as I showed my fear, vanishing as quickly as they appeared. There, then gone. A reminder of how fleeting everything is in the scheme of things. Everything except the pain which lingers on. The night got even darker, swallowing me in. I could hardly see the guide in front of me. I felt myself begin to stumble, my steps unsure. The road got rockier, and I fell to the ground, crying out. "We are actually there," she said. "We are nearly at the next part of your journey. Get up and carry on." The souls of the dead whispered around me, calling me, daring me to leave the path and join them. "What would you choose?" she asked. "Food or football? Would you feed the starving masses, or would you host a World Cup?" The path ended on a sea of sand, crunchy beneath my bare feet. Ahead the sea stretched into the distance, dark and mysterious, hiding creatures ready to feed on me and tear me limb from limb. The sound of the waves relaxed me, lulling me into a false sense of security. I closed my eyes, and I could picture the clear blue ocean and endless white sands of Mauritius. However, I was nowhere near that idyllic island. I was being summoned elsewhere. "This is where we part ways," my guide said. "Climb onto the old dhow, and it will take you to the next part of the journey." The dhow floated eerily silent on the dark water as I drifted to an unknown destination. The water started to boil, churning out bubbles and steam which rose like smoke above the water. I tore off my clothes to try and cool down. The heat coming from the water was both suffocating and nauseating. I didn't think I could handle much more of this. It felt as if all my blood vessels had burst, and all I could see were shades of red and blue, my eyes floating on a sea of blood, unfocused, unstable in the madness I was feeling. The overwhelming redness turned into swirls of colour, which blinded me with its very brightness, sharp needles of colour entering my eyes and piercing my brain like a spike, killing all the cells it touched. Destructive. I was the doll lying immobile on the floor of the dhow as the needles were twisted into me, a most perverse form of acupuncture. It felt as if I was being broken apart, torn limb from limb and put into a blender until I no longer knew who I was or where I'd come from. A person morphed into bright buttons of colour, an array of cells screaming out their own pain. Slowly but surely, my cells of colour moved back closer to each other until they became a sticky, messy mass. Globs of humanity, of life, lifting me up and giving me hope. But just as I thought I was whole, the devil appeared, red and black, filled with hate. "Why?" I shouted. "I have been good, led a wholesome life. Why me?" The devil laughed like the hiss of a snake. "I only visit the good, as I already own the bad." "Give me your soul, and I'll take away the pain," the devil leered. "I'm not evil. That's an urban myth." "You wouldn't know good if it smacked you in the face," I said as I wrestled the devil to the ground. The devil was strong. He obviously worked out, whereas the pain had weakened me. But I was not going to give up. Just when he thought he had me, I rallied and pinned him down, sitting astride his chest, suffocating him. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, stood up and threw the devil over the side of the dhow into the cauldron of boiling ocean, sending him to the dark, murky depths of depravity, back to where he belonged. The devil sizzled and hissed as the churning water enveloped him, and I thought I heard him cry out in pain. Each splash from his struggle scorched my skin, pinpricks of pain sapping my energy. Exhausted from the fight, I collapsed on the floor of the dhow and felt my body relax as I drifted off to sleep. In my dream, I was tied to the mast of the dhow, hung out to dry, ready to absorb new life, new beginnings, a future with no pain. The woman appeared before me, dancing, beckoning, tempting. I was too exhausted to be going anywhere, so I just lay there and watched as she went through her routine. When she vanished, I felt a sense of relief. I just wanted some peace so that I could rest and recover. The mind fog descended on me, making it difficult to distinguish between dream and reality. Another woman swirled into my mind, dancing with effortless grace like a feather caught in a cool ocean breeze. She crooned and sang a lullaby as she scooped me up from the floor of the dhow and cradled me against her ample breasts, nurturing, comforting, and easing my pain. Although I felt safe as I rested against the comfort of her soft pillows, my throat was parched from the heat, and I cried out once again. With a click of her fingers, the teapot appeared. "Tea for two," she whispered suggestively. Mopping my brow, she smiled a sweet smile and hummed a strange and musical tune that invigorated me and gave me back my strength. "You don't need me any more," she said. "You know what to do now." When she stood up, the dhow rocked, and I grasped onto the side to prevent me from falling out. The water was calmer. The angry boiling had stopped, and I saw that she was mirrored in the ocean, that she became two instead of one. Diving over the side of the dhow, she swam off into the sunset. I had no idea where she was going, as there was no land in sight. I watched until she disappeared from view and hoped that her strong, sure strokes would take her to safety. I drifted on, praying for land. The sun seemed to sink down into the sea, making it blend in with the sky, different shades of pink, a cornucopia of color. Out of nowhere, a door opened in the sunset, and I guided the dhow through the aperture, hoping against all odds that I would be coming to the end of my journey. The truth was that the rocking motion of the dhow and the taste of the sweet tea I had drunk was making me feel seasick. The dhow touched the sea bottom and came to rest upon the sand. I climbed out, groggy and unsteady, and made my way over to a group of ladies sitting giggling at the water's edge. As I turned around to take one last look at the dhow, it maneuvered itself off the sandbar and slowly drifted off into the sunset. If I needed to get away in a hurry, it would not be by dhow. The women called me over and tempted me with alcohol poured over ice. "Take, drink, and forget your sorrows," they said as they passed me a tall glass. I took, drank, and temporarily forgot my sorrows. We walked along the beach, hand in hand, my feet floating just above the sand. I wished I could stay here forever and never go back. But wishes are just that, wishes. All around were couples, some sitting chatting and some making out. Nobody was alone. I began to wonder if I had wandered in on the act of some reality couples show. We turned a corner and came upon a bride dressed in white, a flower in her hair and a loving smile on her face, her eyes alight with hope. All around us were flowers of the brightest, most intense yellow. I couldn't resist. I had to touch one, feel the soft petals between my fingers. As my finger connected with the petal, an electric shock knocked me off my feet. Look, but don't touch, the woman by my side murmured. We walked on past trees laden with mangoes, bananas, and other exotic-looking fruit. Then I realized that as another couple passed us, that we were the only ones heading in this direction. I wondered with trepidation what was waiting ahead. Without warning, the lush forest ended, and before us loomed two huge archways. This is as far as I can go, my partner said as she disentangled herself from my hand. Whichever arch you go through is your choice. Choose wisely, as once you enter through it, you can't turn back. I looked for a moment, contemplating which one to choose. They both looked the same. I decided to step through the one which appeared to have more light permeating through it. As I stepped through the arch, I sensed someone watching me. It was surprisingly another woman, this one dressed in red. Welcome, she said. Just as I was feeling relaxed and confident that I had made the right choice, there was a flash of light and the woman in the red dress morphed into the devil herself, a beautiful body with a long tail. Surprise, she chuckled when she saw the shocked expression on my face. When she bent to kiss me, there was a cacophony of sound exploding in my ears and flashes of light that blinded me. As her lips touched mine, the intense pain returned, causing me to fall to the ground and writhe in agony. The drumming inside my head started, relentless, numbing all thought and reason. It was as if 100 djembe drummers had taken residence inside my head, making my body contort and writhe to the beat. I heard huge crowds jeering, bombs exploding, protesters marching, chanting. My body had become a riot zone as the pain warriors moved in en masse and by force, beating and bruising my body into sublimation. The troop of monkeys descended from the trees. Daubed with colour and mischief, they pulled and pushed me until I became a limp rag doll, and it took all my energy to be able to lift my hands and beg, "No more!" The colours became brighter and more focused. I was like a blind man given glasses to restore his sight. Images dancing before my eyes became clearer until they began to take shape. My eyes focused on a flower so pink and so clear, its perfume so strong it made my eyes water. As the tears ran down my cheeks, so the pain leaked out of my body. They gathered around me, dressed in shrouds. "We've come to take you home," they said. "But eat first, as the journey is long." They gave me food that tasted better than anything I had ever eaten before. "Cool off in the healing waters before we start the trip," they suggested as they removed my clothes. "Cleanse yourself and remember to throw the water over your shoulder because it is the past you are putting behind you." "Don't look back," they chanted in unison, a choir of voices to encourage and warn. "Behind you is the trash you are leaving behind. If you turn around, it will come back tenfold." The crowds gathered as I washed away my sins and pain. I made sure to throw the water over my shoulders and not look back. This was a journey I did not want to repeat, a once-in-a-lifetime experience, but deep inside, I knew it would never be over. From the crowd stepped forward some men, armed with staffs and flowing robes. "It is time," they said. "Step out of the water, dry yourself off, and get dressed. We will be your guides. Follow us, and do not stray from the path." A man on a bicycle cycled past me, his woman precariously balanced on the back. I wondered if my burden of pain was heavier than the burden he carried on the back of his bicycle. "Take care," he shouted as he disappeared over the top of the hill. A group of women sauntered past, their babies strapped to their backs. "Welcome back," they smiled, their joy infectious, lighting my heart, giving me hope. The road back was long, but it was made easier by the many people we passed. Like the young mother caring for a child who took the time out of her busy day to give me some sweet mangoes and a drink of cold water from the mountain spring. The banana ladies adjusted their loads as they got ready to climb the mountain. "One last mountain, one last hill, and you'll be home," they said. We walked through the night, the road going on forever. My guides didn't want to stop. They seemed to have their own agenda. "Hurry," they urged. "We have to go back and fetch another who suffered like you." As the dawn broke and the early sun's rays lit up the snow on the mountain, we passed a young family singing songs filled with joy, love, and happiness, and I knew that finally I was back home where I belonged. As each sun sets, my guide arrives, and the journey into the hell of pain begins again, without end, relentless, leaving me little time for respite. Maybe God can save me. So, the artist who painted these paintings was Daniel Quinlan, and his little story was as follows. My grandfather was an accomplished painter, and I guess I can credit him for getting me started. I started painting in high school and then stopped for many years until I encountered the great masterpieces from some of Europe's most famous artists. I made several return trips to Amsterdam to study the work of the Impressionists and Post-Impressionists. After suffering 8 years of pain caused by a pinched sciatic nerve, my wife and I moved to Tanzania in East Africa. Tired of the effects of painkillers, I gave them up and started painting again as a way to take my mind off the pain. I started using the odd technique of finger painting and found that I could better express myself and get better textures than with a brush. During this time, I wrote and illustrated a successful children's book called The Legend of Killy Diablo. Going cold turkey of painkillers was not easy. What followed was sleepless nights, pain, and sweaty nightmares. All that got me through this time was painting. I ran out of paint and moved onto African synthetic oil paints, which were lethal, causing my fingers to crack and bleed and become raw. Doctors assured me my fingers would heal if I stopped painting. My wife begged me to stop. I ignored everybody and continued to paint until I could no longer bend my fingers. Then, just as I had started, I stopped. 125 canvases in 3 years. Since then, I've only completed 4 canvases using the traditional brush method. It's not the same. Now, I channel my creativity into writing and music production. In Moshi, Tanzania, I was inspired by the vibrant people, the vibe of the country, the local music, colorful landscapes, and artists' community. That ended when I left. Although many of my original canvases have sold all over the world, when Cindy Vine approached me about putting some of them into a book, I was interested. What is pain if you can't share it with the rest of the world? And this is like a little bit about me that I wrote at that time. Like Daniel, I am no stranger to pain. 2 bouts with breast cancer, huge tumors on my thyroid, infections, complications, shoulder surgery, you name it, and I've suffered through it. In fact, after 2 surgeries, 3 weeks apart, the pain was so intense, I went to bed with light brown hair and woke up the next morning with grey hair. True story. I always thought turning grey overnight from pain was an urban myth. Apparently, It does really happen. When Daniel agreed for me to compile this book and develop a story around his paintings, I was up for the challenge. His paintings, his story, and the techniques he was using and results he was getting were inspirational. Pain is something we all face in our lives at one stage or another. However hard we try, there is no chance of escaping it. Pain is a journey of highs and lows. You can let it get the better of you, or you can fight it head on, like Daniel did. What makes it so much more terrifying is the fear we feel when we experience pain. Scary stuff. Like Daniel, I've also written some children's stories. I've also written some self help books and a whole lot of novels. And you can find out all my books on Amazon as paperbacks or on Kindle. But this one is my only, I suppose you can call it, an adult storybook.